She surprised everyone by bringing her son to a date. His incredible response changed everything. The moment Sarah swiped right on David's profile, her heart raced like a roller coaster barreling down its track. Finally, someone who seemed real, someone charming and intelligent. The anticipation was intoxicating. Every message exchanged between them felt like a breath of fresh air, sparking something deep within her that she thought had long been extinguished. But what if he didn't like Jacob? What if it went wrong, unraveling the fragile threads of connection just as they began to weave a tapestry of possibility? On her drive to the diner that evening, uncertainty churned in her stomach. The clamorous clanging of forks and plates welcomed her as she took her place at the counter. There was comfort in the familiarity, yet the scenery felt different, a precursor to a change. As the clock ticked toward their meeting, she stared at Jacob, the way his fingers brushed over his drawings, and felt the weight of the dilemma mounting within her. Should she let him in on this budding romance, or shield him from potential hurt? As she set David's favorite cherry soda in front of him, a quiet thought emerged. Maybe he would see her differently if he saw her with Jacob, the life she led. Why the unease, though? If she opened up her world, would he run in the opposite direction, or would he embrace them both? Jacob, like a flower yet to bloom, needed nurturing. But would she be shoving him into the spotlight, exposing him to the blunt edges of the world? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The moment she invited Jacob to the booth, an electric tension filled the air. Hearts raced, breaths quickened. Surrounded by the clinks of dishes and whispers of familiarity, they held ownership over their corner of the diner, fighting against the weight of expectation. David's warm smile contrasted sharply with Jacob's shy glances, raising the stakes of the encounter. Would laughter and connection take flight, or would silence remain their only companion? As Jacob began to delve into his imagination, spinning poetic tales of knights and castles, the moment crackled with potential. But when David paused, caught off guard by Jacob's insightful question about passion and purpose, do you really enjoy what you do? Or is it just a job? The breath caught in Sarah's throat. Would David see the beauty behind her son's innocence? Or simply view it as a burden, a reminder of her responsibilities? Just as the connection felt promising, a raucous disturbance erupted outside. Jacob's schoolmates burst through the door, bullying barbs aimed at him, threatening to unravel the delicate fabric of the evening. Her heart pounded, torn between the currents of new love and the emotional storm swirling around her son. Could she risk one for the other? As the tension heightened, she grappled with the decision, feeling the sharp ache of maternal instincts battling against personal desires. The evening hung precariously on the edge, loaded with a promise of love and the heart-wrenching reality of protection. Would she step in, or allow David a chance to show that he could embrace her world? Every choice loomed like a shadow, casting over her resolve and the future she often dreamed about. The possibilities felt almost within reach, a glimmer of hope swaying in the balance, but were they destined to slip away before they even began? The cacophony of laughter and taunts from Jacob's classmates sliced through the air, tension coiling tightly around Sarah's stomach. In that moment, she felt the weight of worlds shifting, the dual responsibility of mother and individual crashing together. Would she intervene and shield Jacob from his peers, or would she give David the space to step up, to show kindness in the face of ridicule? David's expression flickered from surprise to understanding, his arching brow signaling his silent question. What now? It was a test, the first serious one in their fragile connection. Sarah's fingers twitched, longing to wrap around Jacob's smaller hand, to provide the comfort of her presence and protection against cruelty. Jacob, sensing the turmoil, darted a glance at her, his eyes wide and questioning. That innocent stare mirrored the very essence of the self she tried to protect. The battle lines were drawn, Letting David into this part of her life could either forge an unbreakable bond or expose them to deeper vulnerabilities. She took a deep breath, weighing her instincts. "Jacob," she began, her voice steady despite the quaking in her chest. "Do you remember that the power of words can build or break? You possess the courage of those nights you tell tales about. I want you to show that strength now." He nodded slowly, emboldened by her faith in him, but she could see the apprehension etched on his face. It was an expression she knew all too well. It mirrored her own fears about being vulnerable again. Without a word, Jacob shifted his focus back to the classmates, their laughter like static electricity in the air. David shifted slightly on his stool, uncertainty clouding his demeanor as he braced against the unexpected confrontation. But instead of wallowing in discomfort, Jacob took a stand. With a small voice, he turned toward his peers. "If you don't like my stories, that's okay. I have 100 more waiting to be told. Each one is better than your jokes." The restaurant fell silent, the shock of his unexpected defiance casting a momentary spell over the group. David's admiration lit up his features, surprise evident in his eyes. In that instant, Sarah recognized something profound flickering to life within her son. Jacob was not just a victim. He was stepping into his own power, asserting his presence defiantly. Her heart swelled with pride. She could feel a shift within herself, too. This wasn't just a challenge for Jacob. It was a turning point in her journey as a mother. She was learning to trust in both his resilience and her own capacity to embrace the messiness of life. David's laugh burst forth, genuine and untainted by pretense. Never underestimate a storyteller, especially one that believes in himself, he added with a warmth that felt like a shield around them. It was a sign of solidarity he accepted them both, embracing the full tapestry of who they were. As the shadows of uncertainty began to lift, laughter returned to encompass the table. Sarah felt the barriers within her, that protective armor built over years, begin to crumble. She could not ignore the brush of possibilities. A world where both mother and son could thrive. But just as the evening glimmered with new hope, a voice interrupted their moment. Jacob's main tormentor stepped forward, steely-eyed and smirking. "You think that makes you cool? Just wait until tomorrow," he spat, contempt curling his lips like a snake brandishing its fangs. Tension crackled anew, a warning tremor that threatened to undo everything they had just built. Sarah's heart raced with the understanding that this wouldn't be the end of their struggles. Rather, it was just the beginning. Could she teach Jacob to confront the complexities of friendship and enmity? And would David continue to stand by them, ready to face the challenge of navigating through turbulence that lay ahead? As Sarah contemplated the road before them, uncertainty loomed. Would the fragile bond they'd begun to form withstand the trials of peer cruelty? The moment was fragile, pregnant with new lessons so desperately needed. The time had come for decisions that could reshape their destinies. She knew they must engage or risk being swept away. Would they embrace the challenges together, or would old fears pull them apart? The air grew thick with tension. The laughter of Jacob's classmates transformed into a chilling echo against the backdrop of impending confrontation. Sarah felt a visceral tightening in her chest, as if the very essence of her identity was being scrutinized by every pair of eyes in the room. In that moment, she realized that the turmoil unfolding wasn't solely about Jacob. It was about her as well, a crusade against the instinct to shield, to rescue. Her gaze darted between Jacob and David, weighing her next move against the backdrop of disapproval and uncertainty. Could she afford to allow Jacob to stand alone, facing his peers? But more importantly, could she permit David to witness her own insecurities and fears? While Jacob steeled himself against his classmates' jeers, Sarah's mind swirled with thoughts of her own past struggles against judgment, the desperate need for acceptance. She had fought hard to create a home that fostered resilience, and yet, here she was, paralyzed by old patterns threatening to consume her. "Don't look away," Jacob whispered, turning his gaze back to his peers, his voice steady despite the trembling in his hands. In that instant, Sarah recognized the duality of her role. It mirrored her internal battle. He needed her support, but not the kind that would undermine his newfound strength. "Speak your truth," she implored silently, wishing the unspoken words would translate across the distance between mother and son. Would he find the courage to confront not just the taunts, but also the fears that had haunted them both? The silence stretched, a collective breath held as Jacob stood, his small voice suddenly booming with conviction born of unexpected resolve. I'll tell my stories until the stars fall from the sky, and nothing you say can take that away from me. If you think that makes me less, that's your problem. The ripple of shock among his classmates was palpable, a stunned silence that felt electrified. In that moment, Sarah felt herself transform not just as a mother but as an individual redefining her narrative. The bravery in Jacob's voice ignited something dormant within her, a fire stoked by shared vulnerability and the willingness to embrace the unknown. When David laughed again, this time it was full and hearty, an acknowledgement of Jacob's newfound bravery, as well as a shared understanding of the territory they were navigating together. The subtlety of his smile told Sarah that he recognized both the struggle and reward of genuine connection. Yet as the moment bloomed with new hope, Jacob's tormentor shifted uncomfortably, his expression one of confusion and anger as he internalized Jacob's rejection of his power. Sarah could see it as clearly as she saw the flicker in the boy's eyes. A challenge had been thrown, and now it was a powder keg awaiting a single spark. What was to come? The question loomed as sinister as ever. It sat like a specter at the edge of their triumph, a stark reminder that confrontation with those dynamics would not just define Jacob's experiences, but also determine the course of their family's future. Resilience, Sarah thought, her heart racing with determination. More than mere survival, it reflected a fundamental choice to engage. She leaned closer to David, emboldened by the success of that brief exchange. How do we keep this going? She asked, feeling the tension in her voice. How can I help Jacob navigate the battlefield of adolescence? As David met her gaze, she recognized the uncharted path ahead, the necessity of strategic planning, the potential for growth laced with vulnerability. Would he guide them, or was this journey one only they could craft together? At that moment, uncertainty mingled with hope, an unfamiliar yet thrilling sensation of possibility. In the face of adversity, their journey was only just beginning. Each decision moving forward would be critical, defining who they would become as a unit. She steeled herself, knowing the next day would bring challenges anew, not just for Jacob, but for herself as well. The moment for active engagement was here, and this time, they would face it together, equipped with the strength they had discovered. But even as she considered their united front, a spiraled thought crept into her mind. What if confronting their fears meant losing something precious? Would the bond they forged withstand the tests ahead, or would cracks form, threatening to shatter everything they had built? All Sarah could do was contemplate the next step, her heart pounding with the realization that the stakes had never been higher. As dawn broke, Sarah felt an unusual heaviness settle over her. Yesterday's bravery reverberated in her mind, but the weight of potential consequences loomed larger than the uplifting moment itself. She moved through the motions of morning routine as if wrapped in cotton wool, her thoughts spinning wildly. Would Jacob still stand tall when faced with the inevitable fallout? While pouring a cup of coffee, she caught a glimpse of Jacob in the hallway, his silhouette framed against the light. He appeared small against the vast backdrop of their home, this sanctuary she had created for them. Yet his resolve from yesterday's confrontation flickered in her memory like a beacon. How much of that confidence had been merely a momentary spark, and how much of it would fuel the fires of his ongoing journey? After breakfast, as they settled at the kitchen table, Sarah debated how best to start the day's conversation. It felt imperative to balance concern and encouragement, a tightrope walk that reflected the struggles both of them faced. How are you feeling about yesterday? She finally asked, her voice deliberate but tender. Jacob looked up, momentarily lost in the grain of the table, a half-smile playing on his lips. Like a superhero, he replied, his tone brightening. Like I shot a laser beam or something. The innocence in his response melted some tension in Sarah's chest. Superheroes have to deal with the aftermath, though, she probed gently, unwilling to let the moment slip into unguarded optimism. What do you think is coming next? His brows furrowed in thought, the levity giving way to the seriousness of his position. "I think David's gonna keep making jokes," he admitted, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. The vulnerability of her son's admission struck a chord in Sarah. He was beginning to understand the complexities of growing up, of social dynamics that were much more intricate than she had ever anticipated. Sarah leaned forward, her gaze earnest. It isn't just about telling your story. It's also about taking control of how those stories affect you. Sometimes you have to set boundaries, maybe even speak directly to them. This was her chance to instill a sense of agency in him, a skill that had eluded her for years. Would Jacob recognize the weight of her words? "I don't want to keep fighting," he said softly, his earlier bravado fading slightly. "But I also don't want to let them walk all over me." The tension in Jacob's shoulders conveyed deeper struggles, the push and pull of childhood innocence, and the dawning realization of a world that often felt antagonistic. "Boundaries don't always mean conflict," she reassured him. "They can mean defining how you want to be treated. It's about cultivating your own space. I think you're ready for that." There was a spark in Jacob's eyes, as if a flickering flame had been ignited. "So I can just say, hey, that's not cool, and walk away?" He was testing the words as if they were foreign to him, experimenting with their weight. "Absolutely," she encouraged. "And it might even surprise you how much respect you gain just by being clear about your feelings." The conversation shifted the paradigm within her. Not only was Jacob learning to speak his truth, but she too was being forced to confront her own long-standing avoidance of assertiveness, a prominent struggle in her life that she had actively tried to shield him from. As the day wore on, her thoughts began crafting a plan, something proactive to implement alongside Jacob. What if they approached communication as a tandem effort, modeling strength together in a confronting world? In the midst of her introspection, something jolted inside her. How could they practice this assertiveness actively? Perhaps they could face this burden together. The idea struck like a thunderbolt, a joint effort to plan for a day of facing their fears head-on. Suddenly, Sarah was refueled with purpose. What if we both confronted someone who made us uncomfortable? She mused aloud. Just the two of us. Jacob's brows raised, tracing the outline of her thought. Like a superhero team-up? But who? She paused, savoring the thought of tangible communal learning. What if we start with David? Uneasy anticipation rippled between them, but the notion also filled her with a sense of urgency, a compelling need to act, to solidify not just Jacob's courage but her own emerging identity. With their allies established and boundaries drawn in the air, she understood. Today was a decisive moment. The shared road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was crucial for both of them to engage courageously as they prepared for the inevitable interactions of the day. An unsettling sensation pressed at the back of her mind. Would confronting their fears eradicate the tensions, or would it only deepen divisions? The stakes felt impossibly high, like a tightrope stretched above the unknown. Yet, together they would step forward, determined to define their path amid the uncertainty. With each step, they would back each other, learning to navigate not just the social labyrinth, but the complexities of their evolving relationship. And yet the bitter question lingered. How would their courage be reciprocated, and what would that confrontation ultimately uncover? As they stepped out into the crisp morning air, an unexpected blend of determination and dread settled around Sarah and Jacob. The day felt different, not just another stretch of the clock, but a daring leap across an emotional chasm. Their scheduled confrontation loomed ahead, dark and foreboding. Against the vibrant backdrop of a bustling neighborhood, their hearts beat in tandem, each thrum echoing the shared uncertainty of the task ahead. "Are you still sure about this?" Sarah asked, glancing at her son, whose expression transformed from playful mischief to contemplative seriousness. The air thickened with the unsaid, an unbroken silence that bore the weight of uncharted territory. Jacob shifted his weight, scanning their surroundings as though searching for a beacon of reassurance. "Yeah, I think so," he replied, though the slight tremor in his voice hinted otherwise. "But what if it goes wrong?" Sarah recognized that apprehension. It mirrored her own internal struggle. The fear of failure had often stifled her aspirations, turning potential triumph into paralyzing doubt. "That's a possibility," she acknowledged, "but it's in how we respond that we truly grow." Remember what we talked about this isn't just about David. It's about us too, and how we stand up for ourselves. The gravity of her words seemed to strike something deeper in Jacob. With newfound resolve, he squared his shoulders, determination replacing hesitation. Right, I can do this. The flickering confidence in his eyes inspired her. Perhaps together they could reshape not only their encounter with David, but their own narratives that as they rounded the corner to where Jacob often faced his teasing peers. Sarah felt the sensation of time dilate, each second stretching interminably. Faces of other children flitted by her mind, echoes of laughter now shadowed with uncertainty. But then she steeled her resolve. The moment called for strength, not retreat. A few boys loitered nearby, and Sarah's heart raced. "We can do this," she whispered to Jacob, who nodded vigorously. "Okay," he murmured, punctuated by a gathering breath that signaled he was ready. As they approached, Sarah's instincts kicked in. This was her moment to model the assertiveness she wished to cultivate in Jacob. "Hey, David," Sarah called out, her voice steady despite the trepidation thrumming beneath her skin. Jacob stood beside her, a half-step forward revealing his tentative bravery. The boy turned, color draining slightly from his face, surprise evident in his eyes. "Mrs. Thompson?" David's incredulity offered an unspoken challenge. Why was she here? "We need to talk," Sarah declared, the sharpness of her tone cutting through the casual chatter of the gathering group. Jacob's eyes widened, excitement and fear battling within him. "I'm here too," he added, stepping forward in solidarity. The clarity of his voice riveted her. The boy was summoning courage he didn't know he possessed. And in that shared glance, a pact of mutual support was formed. "Listen, David," began Sarah, her heart beating heavily in her chest. "I want to talk to you about how you treat others." She took a breath, each word emerging with purpose. "It's not just about you. It affects everyone, especially Jacob. Jokes might seem harmless, but they hurt more than you think." David's brows knitted together, uncertainty mingling with defensiveness. "I was just messing around. There's no need to get like this." Recognizing a flicker of defensiveness, Sarah leaned into the moment, aware that navigating such delicate terrain required more than straightforward rebuttals. This was not just a confrontation. It was an invitation for acknowledgement, a catalyst to forge a deeper understanding. "I understand you might not see how your words affect others," she continued, purposely keeping her voice calm. "But being strong doesn't mean making fun of someone else. It means recognizing that everyone has their battles, and the way we treat others becomes a part of who we are." Jacob stepped closer, emboldened by her words. "I'm not your punchline, David. I want to be respected." His voice rang clear, a resonant echo of his mother's insight. Something shifted in David's expression, the bravado waning. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Jacob. I just thought—" He trailed off, his tone losing its arrogance. Sarah felt an unexpected wave of compassion. This boy too was navigating the murky waters of adolescence, his behavior often a sign of his own vulnerabilities. "Maybe," Sarah suggested gently, "we can all work on being kinder, together." The realization that they were paving a new path motivated Sarah, filling her with a sense of empowerment she hadn't felt in years. Perhaps by addressing challenges together, they might foster a new understanding. As they parted from David, Sarah's heart swelled with pride for Jacob. He had faced a fear that had once overwhelmed him. In that moment, they stood together, not just as mother and son, but as allies promising to shape their narratives with strength and respect. Yet, as they walked away, the questions loomed overhead, tinged with uncertainty. Had they unlocked just a door, or was it a portal to greater confrontations waiting in the wings? And would David's reaction, quietly transformative today, blossom into something meaningful, or drift back into the comfort of old habits? The answers remained shrouded in tension, but as Sarah and Jacob exchanged glances, a sense of resolve anchored her. They would navigate this evolving challenge together, one courageous step at a time. With the encounter behind them, Sarah and Jacob found a brisk pace as they made their way home. The air around them still buzzed with unprocessed adrenaline, and the enormity of what they had just done began to sink in. Sarah felt the warmth of Jacob's hand in hers, an anchor pulling her back to the present moment. Her heart was still racing, but she felt lighter, as if they had collectively shed a burden. "I can't believe we actually did that," Jacob said breathlessly, matching her stride. His eyes sparkled, hinting at a newfound sense of agency. "I know," Sarah replied, beaming with pride. "And you stood up for yourself. You were amazing." "I didn't feel amazing," he countered, bemusement creeping across his face. "I just felt different, like I finally said something. Different." The word echoed in Sarah's mind, resonating with her own transformation. She had often viewed her anxiety as an insurmountable barrier, a silent adversary. Every time she sought to advocate for Jacob, her inner voice had chipped away at her confidence. But today, standing beside him, she had found a reservoir of strength that had long been dormant. As they turned onto their street, the familiar landscape of home loomed ahead, yet Sarah sensed that this day had irrevocably altered the contours of their lives. She contemplated how she could harness this shift, both for herself and Jacob. "Hey, can I ask you something?" she ventured, looking at him as they approached their front steps. "What did it feel like when you stood up to David?" Jacob scrunched his nose, opting for contemplation over improvisation. "It was scary at first. I thought he might just laugh at me, but when I saw how surprised he looked, his voice trailed off as he considered the magnitude of the moment. I felt like I could actually change something." Sarah nodded, urging him to unpack those feelings further. "That's powerful, Jacob. You recognized your impact, not just on David but maybe on even those who witnessed it." His eyes widened with realization. "So it wasn't just about me? It was about others too?" "Exactly. The way we communicate our boundaries shapes how we're seen and treated. You took a stand today, and that ripples out." Reflecting on her words, Jacob remained silent, as if disentangling the layers of meaning that bathed their encounter in new light. As the door creaked open, Sarah felt a surge of hope. They were at the precipice of mutual growth, each bravely exploring their human connections. That evening, as they settled down for dinner, Sarah couldn't shake a flicker of ambition. Guided by her own encounter with fear, she laid out plans for a community-oriented project, one that could not only bolster Jacob's confidence but serve as a foundation for reinforcing empathy among their peers. "I was thinking," she began hesitantly, "what if we organized something at your school? A group where kids could share their experiences and support each other?" Jacob's fork paused midway to his mouth. "Like a club? Where we talk about how we can be nicer to everyone." "Exactly. It could be a safe space to explore those conversations," she encouraged, her heart fluttering at the possibilities. "You lead it. This could build on what you did today. You could be a role model helping others find their voice." His eyes sparkled, a mix of excitement and trepidation coursing through him. "But what if nobody shows up? Then we start small, just a few folks. Every little bit counts." A flicker of determination emanated from Jacob as he considered the prospect. Maybe he could be a catalyst. Ultimately, it was a reflection of Sarah's growth too. By proposing this initiative, she had unlocked a collaborative endeavor that was both empowering and transformative. As they cleared the table following dinner, Sarah grappled with the heart of her own fear. Facing their past insecurities had always felt insurmountable. Stepping beyond herself and embracing the role of a mentor, what if she could reinforce Jacob's burgeoning confidence while discovering her own voice? The notion burst forth like unchecked flames, igniting a passion she hadn't felt in years. But just as the idea solidified, doubt crept in. Would they truly be able to shift the narratives they had carried for so long? Could she sustain the momentum bubbling beneath the surface? A silence hollowed within her, punctuated by Jacob's unquenchable enthusiasm, unaware of her spiraling thoughts. In that moment, an echo of his bravery ignited a flicker of potential within her. As they stepped into their living room, a sense of urgency gripped Sarah. This was not merely about nurturing Jacob's development, but about transforming their lives together. They were on the brink of something incredible. Would they rise to the challenge, or would the shadows of their pasts hold them back once more? The weight of that question hung palpably in the air, a prelude to inevitable choices and confronting the deeper uncertainties that loomed just out of reach. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow over the worn wooden table where Sarah sat, her thoughts a chaotic whirlpool of excitement and fear. The vision of the group she had suggested to Jacob loomed large in her mind, but as she sipped her coffee, the doubt from the previous night clawed its way back to the forefront. Could she really pull this off? Determined to dismiss the shadows of doubt, she grabbed a notebook and began outlining her ideas. Creating a supportive environment for Jacob and others sounded so simple, yet she was acutely aware of what lay ahead. A simple school-wide announcement wouldn't suffice. This required strategy, planning, and understanding of the cultural dynamics at play. She realized she needed to delve deeper, not just into logistics, but into the very fabric of what those discussions might mean for her and Jacob. She realized this was just as much about confronting her own vulnerabilities as it was about helping others. In her earlier school years, when she herself had faced a few harsh words, the fear of standing out, of being different, had often silenced her. Now, that very thread of empathy stirred something potent within her, pushing her to channel her energy into action. After breakfast, she made her way to Jacob's room, where he sat at his desk, doodling in a sketchbook. He looked up as she entered, the promise of their conversation buzzing in the air. "Hey, ready to brainstorm some ideas for the group?" she asked, a lilt of enthusiasm edging her voice. "Do I have to?" Jacob replied, a hint of uncertainty creeping in. He dropped his pencil and looked up, a furrow deepening on his brow. "What if it flops? What if nobody wants to talk? Let us focus on finding ways to make it engaging then. We have to show them it's not just about talking. It's about being heard." She sat beside him, flipping through her notes and then gesturing towards a blank page. "Let us think of activities that could break the ice." Jacob's brows relaxed slightly, and he took the pencil from her hand. "Well, what if we had games or activities that would kick things off? Anything to get people comfortable." "Exactly. Start with something fun," she encouraged. "We can invite others to suggest topics and ensure they feel valued. Everyone's presence matters." As they batted ideas back and forth, icebreakers that involved drawing, storytelling prompts that ignited creativity, their dynamic shifted. Each brainstorm became a small victory, a manifestation of their mutual commitment to this initiative. Sarah marveled at his growing enthusiasm, the way he lit up as they mapped out the potential structure of their group. But amid the hope, another layer of worry began to unfurl. She pressed her lips together, hesitating before speaking up. As much as this is about you and others, it's about me too. I have to let go of this fear of being judged. What if my voice isn't enough?" Jacob paused, thoughtful. "But your experience helps you understand those feelings better than anyone. You make it easier for someone like me to feel okay with sharing." Her heart raced at his words. The weight of her insecurities suddenly felt lighter, yet the stakes seemed higher. This wasn't just about guiding Jacob. It was about stripping away the layers of her own self-doubt. As evening rolled around, Sarah felt a powerful sense of kinship with Jacob, the harsh edges of anxiety smoothing with each shared dream. However, the looming reality of confrontation with the insecurities that haunted her didn't fade. Would she be able to act as the leader they both envisioned? Could she be the mentor Jacob needed, while still nurturing her growing complexities? By the time twilight settled in, the air before them thickened with unspoken possibilities, their plans transforming into something real, poignant, and utterly paramount. This confrontation with their fears was only just beginning. And as Sarah looked out into the encroaching night, she desperately wondered if she could truly transform not only Jacob's experience but her own, and whether doing so would reclaim the power they had both lost for too long. The following morning brought a new intensity to Sarah's resolve as she slipped out of bed, feeling the crispness of the air ignite her ambition. This was no longer just about brainstorming ideas with Jacob. It had evolved into a full-fledged mission. A mission to rediscover her voice, validate her experiences, and transform them into something that could nurture Jacob's potential. She had set a goal for herself, to lead a meeting with Jacob that would outline their first official gathering for the group. While she was nervous, she understood that this was a stepping stone in her growth. With each well-crafted sentence, she hoped to articulate not only her vision but also the narrative of her own insecurities. It was time to confront the ghosts of her past, those jarring memories of feeling out of place, the fear that shackled her ability to speak out. After their brainstorming session the night before, Sarah realized she was not the only one who had an affinity for visibility. Jacob craved it, too. He had a unique perspective shaped by his own vulnerabilities, one that resonated deeply with her. The thought drove her to want to organize not merely a forum for discussion but an exchange of stories, a sacred space where being vulnerable was not a weakness but a strength. She paced around her kitchen, jotting down notes on how to present her ideas. As she scribbled, a flicker of doubt tried to creep back in. What if Jacob faltered? What if she stumbled as a leader? No, she had to quell that voice. Today was about evidence of courage, her own and Jacob's. Encouraging Jacob to prepare, she approached him after lunch. Hey, I was thinking we could do a practice run of what we say in the group, she said, gesturing to her notes. His initial reluctance was palpable. Do we have to? What if I forget what to say? He replied, his fingers nervously tracing the outline of his sketchbook. It's just practice, Sarah assured, kneeling next to him. Think of it as breaking the ice, just us. What if we share our stories first? We can support each other. The idea felt right. It mirrored their initial brainstorming but layered with a newfound purpose. Jacob's eyes glinted with curiosity, a spark igniting confidence amidst his anxiety. As they exchanged snippets of their experiences, something began to shift in both of them. Sarah could feel her heartbeat steadying, a measure of control returning to her with each shared word. This wasn't an isolated burden anymore. Many shared similar feelings and thoughts. The fears began to feel less daunting. Yet, as they laid the groundwork for their group, Sarah knew that they would face unexpected backlash. Their chosen vulnerability would not be universally accepted. Would she even be enough to stand firm when faced with opposition? Those questions hummed beneath her skin, each inquiry tightening the tension that started building in her heart. Times of self-doubt would inevitably ebb and flow, but she felt acutely aware that it was part of the process. Rather than repressing these feelings, she began to recognize them as generals in her fight for authenticity. That evening, Sarah put her notes aside and went for a walk, the crisp autumn air invigorating her senses. Each step felt like a small victory, a manifestation of a growing determination. She was no longer merely crafting a plan. She was stepping into her potential. As she wandered, a thought solidified in her mind. She would embrace her role not solely as an organizer but as a leader who dared to face judgment alongside Jacob. This was not about other people's perceptions. It was about creating change. But with newfound resolve came new realizations. Their mission was fraught with challenges that they might not be prepared for. A distant siren echoed, causing her to pause, rethinking their plan. The stakes had never felt so high, and as uncertainty loomed, she couldn't shake the feeling that the upcoming meeting would confront not only their fears, but also the hidden capabilities they had yet to discover. The moment of truth was drawing near, and Sarah could sense the air thickening with anticipation. Jacob's revelations awaited, as did her own. Would their journey unearth the strength they needed, or would fears resurface to challenge their resolve? Sarah's pace quickened as she navigated the crowded streets, her mind a whirlpool of thoughts. The meeting loomed large, unyielding in its approach. She couldn't afford to succumb to fear. Instead, she steeled herself for the task at hand. Her strategic mind was slowly taking the lead over the haunting doubts that had shadowed her for too long. Later that evening, while reviewing her notes one last time, a familiar thought nudged its way into her consciousness. Was they really ready for this? The echoes of past failures flashed before her eyes, moments of hesitation and missed opportunities. Resilience had become her armor, but would it suffice? Every line she had written pulsated with urgency, demanding her to see the truth. The meeting was just as much about her growth as Jacob's. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed her phone, half contemplating a message to Jacob. What if they could set specific goals for the meeting, quantifiable topics to cover? Something to anchor them amidst the chaotic emotions fraying at her edges. But another voice disrupted that thought process. What if being too rigid stifled the very openness they needed to foster? That struggle hung in the air as the meeting day dawned. Despite the anticipation swirling around her, Sarah found herself conducting a tactical mental rehearsal on the way to the coffee shop. Each phrase she planned to articulate felt like a fragile lifeline between her and their shared vulnerability. Yet the anxiety prickled at her spine, a reminder that the past still whispered doubts into her ear. Once inside, she searched for Jacob. He was sitting nervously in the corner, fiddling with his sketchbook. Relief rushed through her at sighting him. They had always found solace in their shared space, but today was different. Today, they were not just two friends. They were pioneers about to breach the frontier of their depths. "Hey, you ready?" she asked, trying to infuse her voice with excitement, even as her heart raced. He looked up, eyes wide, a mixture of apprehension and hope dancing within them. "I guess, but what if we mess this up?" he mumbled, a hint of his earlier reluctance surfacing again. Then unexpected determination enveloped her. "Then we learn from it. This is about growth, not perfection." His nod felt like a silent agreement, a commitment they both needed before they could climb the mountain of vulnerability together. As they began to outline the meeting, a strange synergy began to envelop them, the verbal exchange fluid and engaging. Suddenly, Jacob leaned closer, revealing a raw honesty in his voice. "You know, when you first suggested this, I thought it was just another thing people do. But this feels different. It seems like it could actually mean something." His words resonated within her, lighting a spark. It wasn't just about sharing insecurities. It was about leaving behind the shackles of silence that had restrained them both for too long. But then the weight of responsibility swept over her again. Could she truly lead this journey? Just as the thought settled like a heavy stone in her stomach, a loud chatter erupted across the cafe, bringing with it an unsettling reminder that not all would embrace their initiative. Their vulnerability could indeed invite judgment and ridicule. "I think we should frame our stories carefully," she proposed, her voice shaking slightly. "Let us anchor them in how these experiences have shaped us, not just the pain they've caused. We need to show our strength in how we've overcome." Jacob seemed to embrace the notion, tapping his sketchbook, his mind visibly racing with ideas. As he spoke, Sarah began to visualize their meeting as a canvas for transformation. This wasn't merely about confrontation. It was a chance for mutual discovery and growth. The time was drawing near, and as they prepared to enter the fray, a lingering thought echoed: did they truly possess the tools they needed? As Sarah caught Jacob's gaze, a profound uncertainty clung to the edges of her excitement. The stakes were impossibly high, and every breath felt heavy with expectation. Just before stepping out, an unexpected turn tugged at her gut. The realization that they might succeed while being true to themselves also could lead to failure when faced with dissent. Could they muster the courage to face that judgment without crumbling? They took a deep breath together and moved toward the threshold. As Sarah pushed open the door, she couldn't shake the feeling that today might change everything, or could it destroy what fragile foundations they built? With heart pounding in tandem with her fears, they stepped into the unknown. The moment of truth was upon them, and both their destinies hung precariously in the balance. In the days that followed their courageous confrontation at the coffee shop, Sarah and Jacob found themselves on a newly forged path. The initial meeting had transcended their expectations, establishing connections that resonated through the hallways of Jacob's school. Each session transformed into an affirming echo of shared experiences, a collage of authenticity that not only included tales of challenges faced but also reflections of resilience cultivated within them. Jacob learned to articulate his thoughts, gradually letting go of the cringe-inducing labels he previously endured. Each voice in the group contributed to a deeper understanding of emotional landscapes, and slowly but surely, Jacob stepped into a space of confidence he never before thought possible. It was a metamorphosis reflected in his art, the sketches of knights and dragons evolving into images capturing empathy and strength, mirroring the developments in his life. Meanwhile, Sarah's lingering doubts melted away, replaced by the unshakable foundation of shared leadership she had built with Jacob. Standing at the forefront, She exuded an authoritative presence that amplified their message, the beauty of vulnerability and the power of resilience. No longer did she feel the suffocating grip of fear. Instead, she embraced a role where her past scars became instruments of connection. Throughout the weeks, her organizational skills flourished. She navigated logistics with precision, turning the initiative into a visible campus presence. The community rallied behind it, students increasingly showing up, eager to share their own stories. What started as a modest gathering grew into a thriving support network, where each individual's experience became a catalyst for collective healing. Then came the day when Sarah received the email the principal mentioned in her correspondence that the program was to receive an award for fostering inclusivity and promoting kindness among students. What once consumed her thoughts with trepidation transformed into validation. Jacob's eyes twinkled with astonishment. As they read the news together, he had not only found his voice, but also awakened a powerful narrative that would ripple across his peers. The recognition was not merely an accolade. It was proof of courage, growth, and shared triumph. In that sprinkled moment of realization, she felt dignified pride wash over her. She could honor her own story both as a mother and as an individual. The shadows of her past no longer defined her. She was now forged in the light of resilience. Together, they prepared for the impending assembly where they would accept the award. The anticipation danced in the air, and nerves kissed the edges of excitement. As they took center stage, she glanced at Jacob, whose confidence had grown tremendously. He stood tall, ready to shine. Their unified strength radiated across the auditorium, drawing in the attention of peers and faculty alike. "Today symbolizes our journey," Sarah began, her voice amplified by the support enveloping them. "It's not just an award. It's a testament to the idea that when we share our truths, we create a community that thrives on understanding rather than judgment." Her words echoed with sincerity, articulated through the lens of genuine transformation. Jacob added, "Every story matters. The voice of each person carries weight. Let us continue to uplift one another instead of tearing each other down." The applause that followed felt like a warm wave, crashing over them, each clap illuminating their triumph, interweaving their narratives with threads of hope as they exited the stage. The pride in Jacob's expression resonated deeply within Sarah. He was not merely redefining his experience. He was empowering others to discover their strengths while reclaiming communal resonance. Walking home together, hand in hand, an overwhelming sense of fulfillment filled her chest. This journey was no longer about grappling with fears. It had become one of celebrating accomplishments and fostering a legacy of resilience that would transcend their personal experiences. Their transformation was a testament to a powerful discovery, that embracing vulnerability does not diminish strength, but rather magnifies it, establishing a firm foundation for both mother and son to stand upon. Sarah had emerged, equipped with solid confidence, ready to continue shaping a future encompassed by kindness and understanding. In the wake of their shared experiences, she understood the importance of nurturing her voice just as diligently as Jacob nurtured his, marking the beginning of a promising adventure steeped in empowerment. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending below. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your engagement is pivotal in fostering a community of resilience and growth.